She is shaping that party. She's making it more progressive. She's moving everybody to the left. As you mentioned, people don't recognize Joe Biden anymore. He used to be a moderate. He's certainly not. Now you've got far left running this party, controlling this country, and AOC is at the helm of that. So she's definitely dangerous in a lot of ways, and she's one to watch.
An analysis was done, and it's not really a study. It's an analysis of legislators, and essentially what they were looking at was they tried to judge they tried to score how effective a legislator was in the last Congress. So the 116th Congress, 2018 to 2020, essentially, that was the 116th Congress. And they based this measure on how many pieces of legislation, how many bills you were able to get through committee and actually get passed. And through that, they then determined that through that measure, by the measure of how many bills did this legislator in the House, introduce into committee, and how many did it get through committee, and then how many actually, became legislation, or even got a floor vote, right? Even got a vote on the floor, and then how many actually became legislation, and they scored that. And it was, essentially AOC ranked as one of the most ineffective Congress people in the last Congress, her freshman year. And there were other freshman progressives who scored much better. There were other progressives in general who did score better. But there's a few points I want to make on this. Kyle Kulinski did a video on it, which put me onto it. Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, which, put my attention towards it. And then I read the study that they did, and my thoughts on it are, top line thoughts. What the real story here is, I think, is how Fox News is reacting to this, which I think is the real interesting part of this. And I want to play a couple clips if we can, but I'll play at least one of these clips, and I'll play the Tallulah Lemon clip first. That's Tommy Lauren, I believe. We'll play that clip first, but they're too good. This is essentially, AOC has been declared, based on this measure, as one of the most ineffective Congress people. I actually think that it's a bad measure. Honestly, I'm not defending AOC. By this measure, let me just point out that it's not just AOC that's considered. By this same measure, Nancy Pelosi is also considered. So AOC and Nancy Pelosi are considered two of the most ineffective Congress people. And you try to make the argument to me that Nancy Pelosi is ineffective. I'm sorry.
Well, ineffective for the things we want. Ineffective for actually getting good stuff that we want done.
Exactly. But she effectively blocks all the kinds of progressive legislation, and she absolutely has an effect on the legislation that goes through Congress. You're talking about the Speaker of the House. And so I just don't think that this is really a great measure. I also think that if you put Bernie Sanders through this measure, this would be, Bernie Sanders would be considered an ineffective congressperson. But the way that Bernie Sanders was effective was through amendments and by passing these really effective amendments. And he was called the Amendment King. So I don't think that using this measure is necessarily the best measure. It's an empirical, measure, and it does say something. Ro Khanna ranked pretty high on this list. So, there are progressives who can rank high by this measure. But I do think that it's set up in a way that if you're further to the left, or you're on the fringes of you're a more radical person introducing more radical policy, it is less likely to end up going into getting through committee and getting passed or getting a floor vote. So certainly there's a way. I think that I would make an argument that AOC is ineffective. I just don't think it's based on this measure, right? I think that she's been ineffective in so many other ways, and it's just not based on. I don't think that this is the greatest way to measure it. Now, even now, that being said, you can make whatever argument you want on the, for the left. Oh, if you actually think AOC is actually effective, say something in the comments, argue with me, tell me prove me wrong. But I don't consider her an effective legislator. I just don't think it's for this reason. But Fox News responding to this thing, I think, is hilarious, because Fox News just cannot accept that AOC would be an ineffective legislator, because it doesn't help Fox News's narrative, right? Like, Fox News needs AOC to be exactly. They need a boogeyman, right? So they need AOC to be this terrible, evil, very effective legislator, highly effective legislator. Yes, right. And so let me just play you a clip of from Fox News of them talking about this, and I just think it's hilarious just to laugh at how they They're fearmongering.
Seems like a lot of people are in those ranks, Tommy, because I'd love to see the people at the top of this list and how much they actually got done, because I don't think it feels like there's much getting done at all on Capitol Hill.
Well, it certainly does. And I think there's definitely a big difference between being an activist on Twitter, Instagram Live, and actually doing things for the country. But I have to hand it to AOC because she has been incredibly effective. Just like we're talking about with this infrastructure spending bill, talking about moving further to the left. She's been able to do that. She's got that party wrapped around her finger. She's got Nancy Pelosi wrapped around her finger. Her and the other members of the squad have been incredibly effective with their messaging. And I wish that conservatives would have something like that on our side and be as effective as they are. Maybe we should utilize social media more. Maybe we should be a little bit louder, maybe a little bit more outrageous to match AOC. But the fact that she hasn't done much isn't surprising. But she is shaping that party. She's making it more progressive. She's moving everybody to the left. As you mentioned, people don't recognize Joe Biden anymore. He used to be a moderate. He's certainly not. Now you've got far left running this party, controlling this country, and AOC is at the helm of that. So she's definitely dangerous in a lot of ways, and she's one to watch.
Okay, so go shoot, Kwame.
Why? Complete aside, why does Tommy always look like she smelled a fart? Like someone just farted in her face. Like the facial expression she makes before she talks is that of someone who's just received flatulence. They're making her out to be a firebrand. She just said there's a difference between being a real activist and being someone on Twitter who just talks and is a firebrand. It's you! You're describing yourself!
And that's, I think that she wants to even try to frame this as more effective than what it is as well. It's like for her own personal reasons of like, hey, yeah, Twitter really, like, but it's literally like, that's you right there, right? And said that she said she has Nancy Pelosi wrapped around her finger. Look at, they refuse to hold up to force a vote on Medicare for all by withholding their vote for Nancy Pelosi for speakership. But somehow, some way, they couldn't get a $15 minimum wage pass. $15 was a compromise, and they couldn't get a $15 minimum wage pass. But we're to believe that they got the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, and Nancy Pelosi wrapped around their little finger, apparently. If this is what it looks like when the progressives and AOC have Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden wrapped around their finger, and this is them pushing left, my goodness, I don't want to see what they believe is, pushing right. Look at this. I mean, the Biden's COVID relief bill, from the moment it came out, the only direction it pushed in was to the right? It never pushed left. It was always pushed right. We went from, $15 minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. We went from $600 weekly unemployment benefits to $400 to $300. Ultimately, we went from, whatever, everything else that
we're supposed to have checks every month.
Oh, the $2,000. Sorry, with the $2,000, the progressives wanted retroactive monthly $2,000 checks to every adult. What we got was one-time $1,400 checks to adults, and we even limited the scope of which adults were qualified for that. You even less people. We gave less checks out than Trump gave. So the idea that we somehow push Biden left, or that AOC is pushing Biden left, is a utter joke and a just insult to our intelligence. And I want to play one other clip for you because the other one was just more crazy fearmongering, and this one's by a black guy, and I just think it's also hilarious the way that Fox News finds these black people. It's like, where the fuck are these? It just reminds me of the like Key and Peele black Republican skit. But here we go. Okay.
She talks a big game on Twitter, but when it comes to actually getting stuff done, a New York Democrat, Ocasio-Cortez, is coming up short. A new nonpartisan study says AOC was among the least effective members of the last Congress, introducing 21 bills that went nowhere. I hate bills that go nowhere. All right, I'm going to say something, Lawrence, that I think this study is bogus. It's like they're measuring the amount of blood in a sponge. It's like she's probably the most effective politician on the planet. It has nothing to do with bills anymore.
Most effective.
This is why we continue to lose.
Listen to this
look, AOC, the Congress is a representation of the current population, right? AOC is not after the current population. She's after your kids and your grandkids, and she's very effective at it. And the amount of people in the progressive caucus that exist now because of her going around the country to rally them, oh, she's been quite effective. And you should be afraid.
She's been quite effective, and you should be afraid. Okay, she's
I
been
want
quite
to
effective.
live in the world that conservatives live in. I
Yo,
want
right?
to live
Yo,
in this dope ass world where Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and AOC are these freaking far left radical, just
Socialist, communists,
like,
anarchists.
I
Like
hate
AOC's
that.
like an
It-
anarchist in these people's
Ooh.
world. Like, yo, I wish the world they describe. I fucking wish, man. I wish. Like,
was but a dream. Like, what in the actual factual hell are they talking about? This is bizarro world. I wish, my God,
yo,
the fear mongering. This is
no, it's what, like, straight up fear mongering. The dude said you should be afraid. And you
hide
should
your kids.
hide your, he was like, that's seriously that case. Hide your kids. Hide your, he said literally, like, she's coming after your kids. She's coming for your grandkids. Hide your kids. Hide your wife. All right.
This study is bogus. It's part of the deep state to make her seem ineffectual so that we laugh her off. But at the same time, these are the same people who always call her stupid. So
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
still very confused. Is she dumb? Is she a mastermind?
Yep. No, it's whatever gets the most eyes and attention on. And in the reality, that boogeyman, they want somebody to position to make.
We did it with Trump. I'm saying, like,
Yes,
the liberals did it with Trump. He was both an evil genius mastermind and a bumbling buffoon. So, like
So
we got to
true.
stop these AOC segments. Are going to say we have AOC derangement syndrome soon. Is the next step, because I cannot believe. Like the most ineffective. I would like to amend the title to the most tragic, because, like, taking all of this into consideration with what you pointed out earlier about her giving the money and the people giving it back, like, she don't get love anywhere. She tries to play the game. She's so bad at it. The idea that she's got Nancy Pelosi wrapped around her finger, she can't. You can't say she's corrupt. She couldn't be corrupt if she wanted to. She's so freaking bad at it.
Yeah.
She's so bad at it. Like, you're courting people who want nothing to do with you. You're selling out, like,
the whole base. She's spitting in the face of her entire base, of her most enthusiastic base. She has spit in the face of, called them bad faith actors, privileged, use the language of privilege. Some of the most desperate people in the country, calling them privileged, while she sits on $175,000 a year. I mean,
it's like pick me behavior, and sis, you're still not getting picked.
Yep. I mean, she didn't get picked for any committees after that was supposedly what they were doing was, all this, backdoor behind the scenes, negotiation for, they need committee seats that are powerful. Not only did she not get in committee seats, but Katie Porter got kicked off of hers, and she was really good on her seat or whatever in the Financial Services Committee or whatever. That's the woman that always comes out with the whiteboard and, like, does all the, and breaks down and embarrasses, like, these corporate, execs and CEOs and shit. So, or like what's his name from Chase or whatever, JP Morgan, whatever, Jamie Dimon, like, she embarrassed him. So and they kicked her off of her committee seat. So progressives are moving in the wrong direction. They didn't get any concessions on any of these bills. The things they point to as wins are just it's a joke. It's a joke. These little tiny little nibbling around the edges type of legislation. They've been totally ineffective based on the policies they actually support, that they nominally support, that they claim to support. Medicare for all, at least a $15 minimum wage, which is honestly, it's the compromise. We got to stop talking about $15 minimum wage. We got to start talking about $25 minimum wage, because that's at least what it would be at if it kept up with productivity and inflation. Would be $25 an hour, and we need to start talking 25 and hope that we can at least compromise down to 20. But we need to start talking 25, because this is, we've been talking about 15 since 2012. But they've gotten none of this legislation. Green New Deal, they've gotten none of this. None of this legislation is coming anywhere close to being enacted. acted. And the idea that she's effective at what? Effective at nothing. They just need to paint her as she's the big, bad, scary wolf, coming to blow your house down. And she's gonna take all your guns and take your kids and all that, fun stuff. And it's just, it's totally a joke.
She's
and
gonna
just
take your Mr. Potato Head.
Oh, yes. She's gonna come and take all your Dr. Seuss books and your Mr. Potato Heads. And yeah, it's just a joke. It's gross. It's pathetic.
Increasingly secondhand embarrassed for AOC. Like, it's she's tiptoeing towards Elizabeth Warren territory of like putting it all on the line just to get nothing for it.
Dude, people, that's a great point too. Absolutely, exactly. Because Elizabeth Warren, she's so bad at politics, as well. It's like you can't even like the idea that you were going to somehow get concessions, and she's like, oh, it's better to be in the room. But you're absolutely right on that. And I honestly think the people that AOC is not currently, she's not, she is not the same as Nancy Pelosi right in this moment is, but there is absolutely a case to be made that AOC is on a very similar trajectory to Nancy Pelosi. I mean, Nancy Pelosi came into Congress supporting things like universal healthcare. You can find speeches of Nancy Pelosi's arguing in favor of universal healthcare, single payer healthcare, like 30 years ago. You can find speeches of her saying, we got to bring up legislation. We got to get a vote on this. Like she was, having that same progressive rhetoric 30 years ago when it wasn't as politically convenient. So in the same way, you could say that Nancy Pelosi was in some ways just as progressive, relatively speaking, back then as AOC is today, technically, nominally progressive. But the reality is that the longer you spend in Congress, like you don't change the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party changes you. All right. That's how it works. You don't change systems. Systems change you. All right. So you got to get real with these things and recognize that people only move to the right once they make it into Congress. And we have to really, really be super careful about, I don't know that there's any individual that we're going to be able to put in Congress that isn't going to be susceptible to these pressures.